Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host, Owen James, channel that brings you all your latest Rangers news. Guys, we are back here ready to give you all the latest updates ahead of a weekend of football. That's right, we are back. And it is a game on Sunday against Fraserburgh. No league action, it's the cup action. So a bit of a break from the league, a bit of a break from the depression of being all those points behind our rivals, shall we say, from across the city. I think that's probably the nicest way of putting it, to be perfectly honest with you. But yeah, you look, we're going into this game, I think, and I think there's sort of the hope, isn't it, that Clermont gives youth a chance in this cup tie. Although, from what he was saying today, and from kind of listening into what his press conference, I did listen to his press conference, and I have given up a little bit on his press conferences. He did seem to suggest, mainly that some of the other players would be involved as well, or instead of. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about injuries again to key players. Yes, more key players out, and other players returning as well. We're also going to talk a little bit as well about the sacking of the Belgian national team manager. Does this present an easy out for Rangers? That's right, Dominic Tedesco has been sacked. And we'll also kind of try and find out what transfer news there is out there at this moment in time. There is very, very little, which is weird, which we'll touch on. Anyway, Philippe Clermont spoke to the media today ahead of the game on Sunday against Fraserburgh in the Scottish Cup. A competition, obviously, we got to the final of last year. A competition that, look, I think is probably our best hope of actually getting a trophy this season. Realistically, we're not going to win the Europa League. I think there's far stronger teams than us in the Europa League. So realistically, the league is gone. I mean, I think even the most optimistic of Rangers fans will admit to you that the league is done and dusted. And it will be now really the Scottish Cup that is the best possible way of getting something. Now, Clermont was obviously started off the press conference by talking about injuries. Yes, the familiar topic to Rangers fans, the familiar topic that seems to open every press conference and has done for a very long period of time. Injuries, yes, that's right. So, unfortunately, Philippe Clermont did confirm to the media that Danilo and Cortez would both be unavailable for this weekend and possibly for longer. Look, Clermont, I think saying, that these two are out, I think realistically, you probably weren't going to see Danilo anyway against Fraserburgh. I highly think that was unlikely, even if he was fully fit. Cortez, that's another matter. You may well have seen some minutes from Oscar Cortes to give him some match fitness. But, in terms of these two players now, look, Danilo is a player who's come back from injury and has had, a fair degree of success and has done very well, I think, since coming back from injury, and has formed a very useful partnership at times with Hamza Igaman when the manager has actually shown the wherewithal to actually play with Hamza and Danilo up top. And I think it makes the team look a whole lot better. It gives us a fluidity of movement, it gives us a speed, it gives us an intensity, it gives us a cutting edge up there. So I do think that is a big positive. However, obviously now with Danilo out, it will force the manager to change back, I think, to putting Bayrami on the left or some sort of combination of. I mean, it may have even presented a chance for Oscar Cortes had Cortes actually stayed fit. But look, I mean, before we get on to Cortez, and I think there's a big debate to be had around Oscar Cortez. Of course there is. The same sort of debate has been had around Danilo, the same sort of discussions around him and the fact that he can't seem to stay fit. I mean, obviously, the injury that he has sustained in this last game just gone. It is not an injury that was that seemed to be a muscle injury of any description in his legs or his ankles or his shins or his knee. Where previous injuries have been. It seemed to be to his shoulder, some sort of issue with his shoulder. That's why he is out now. The manager did mention that Danilo was seeing a specialist, and there was still no full assessment on the nature and obviously of the degree of the injury to Danilo. So certainly worrying stuff. And I think, the comments that Clermont made about hoping that this was a short-term thing certainly doesn't fill you with a lot of confidence going forward, especially given Rangers, present injury history. Then, of course, Oscar Cortes. Now, Cortes, I think we can all admit, since he's come to the club, has been, shall we say, unlucky with injury. Now, look, I want to, from the outset, state this. I have nothing against Oscar Cortes. I actually think that Oscar Cortes is a very talented footballer from the limited sample size we've seen of him. I think, we can all remember back to that Hearts game, the 5-0 last season, where he was absolutely outstanding. A couple of other bits and pieces before he went down injury, where he looked injured, where he looked very, very good indeed. And, the fact that when he played for his country in the Under-20 World Cup or the Under-21 World Cup or the Under-23 World Cup, whichever it was, he was one of the outstanding players of the tournament. So, look, I don't think there's kind of any discussion really over the fact that he is a very good footballer. He's clearly a very talented footballer. Whether his style and his way of playing is suited to Scotland is another debate for another time. But one of the massive concerns as regards Oscar Cortes is this repeated injuries that he sustains. If we look at some facts about Oscar Cortes, this season he has only played 8 times for Rangers, once in the League Cup for 17 minutes and 7 times in the Premiership for 209 minutes. So in 8 appearances, Oscar Cortes has only managed 226 minutes. So, he's averaged around about 28 minutes a game. That's all, just 28 minutes. I mean, it's not great, is it? A lot of those appearances have come as a substitute on return from injury. I think they all have. So that's not been great, has it? The fact that he has not played a lot this season. Going across his entire career, he's not a guy who's played a lot of football. He hasn't played a massive amount of senior football. Looking at these statistics around him, I think it's worth remembering, that Oscar Cortes is, he's still a young player. Of course, he's 21 years old, but, he hasn't played a great deal for a player that's moved, from a big club in Colombia to France and then from France to Scotland. I mean, he only made 28 appearances, 7 goals, 5 assists, which is pretty impressive in his native Colombia before going to Lens, where he actually only made 10 appearances combined for their B team and their full team. For Rangers, and the fact that, he came in on loan in January last year, so he's been here a year now. He's only made 15 appearances in a year, 1 goal, 2 assists. I mean, 15 appearances in a year is not a massive amount of football, is it? In terms of his injury history, this is the bits and pieces I could find. It is quite sketchy online, actually. Thigh injury in 2023, which lasted from the 4th of November to the 1st of December. That kept him out. Then we've got some other injuries in here. We've got, then he comes back, plays between December and February, is injured again in the February and misses the rest of the season until June time. Comes back, I think plays a couple of any games. He may have played a couple of bits and pieces, but came back in June. No, he didn't. The season was over by then. Did his rest and recoup, got back, and then on the 3rd of August, he gets a knee injury after only just coming back from injury on the 1st of June. So a couple of months later, he goes down again on the 15th to the 5th till the 15th of September. So he misses nearly a month, over a month of football. He then comes back and just 6 days later suffers yet another injury. And then on the 12th, he's ready to return to action again. However, as we now know, he is back on the treatment table, injured yet again. I mean, that's 5 injuries for Rangers in only a year. 5 injuries. That is a lot of injuries in a space of only 12 months. I think it's worth, thinking about that. Now, Clement spoke today and said, that he was confident that the club had made the right decision in signing him, the right decision, and obviously going to be spending that $4.5 million on him in the summer. He felt that the lad had, in his words, strong legs, which I don't really see with all those injuries. And was confident that he could go on to have a very good Rangers career. He spoke very glowingly of the boy, saying that he was keen to learn, that he had a good basic levels, good skill level, looked a very talented player, listened to the coaching staff, did very well indeed. Now, look, like I said, I've got nothing against Oscar Cortes. I think he's a very good footballer. But the situation is that he is hurt a lot of the time, and he is sustaining injury after injury after injury after injury. Now, the question remains is, what is the issue? What is the problem? Is it, genuinely that he has some sort of weakness there that through strength and conditioning work, through fitness work can be overcome? Or is it that he can't stand up to the physicality of the Scottish game? I mean, one of those injuries, for example, was a knock injury. So the Scottish football is more physical than the French football. It is more physical than Colombian football. So, despite what you might think about Colombia, but look, at the end of the day, he's in a position where he is missing an awful lot of time. He is out, and Rangers are going to be committing an awful lot of money to this player. They really are. I mean, 4.5 million is a lot of cash. It's a very, very, very high amount of cash. Especially when you consider that Rangers don't have a lot of money. It's not that we are a financially wealthy club at this point that can afford to splash cash on luxury players who play the odd game now and again, but then don't play very often, which is obviously what Cortez is. And I think this kind of opens a wider discussion about the wisdom of this deal. Now, look, I know what people will say. Well, let's not sign him. Let's just not bother. Let's rip up the deal. Well, we can't. The problem is it'll be a legally binding contract. Obligation to buy means you have to buy. It doesn't mean it's an option there. It means it has to be done. The fee is in the contract, 4.5 mil. So it's not like we can even negotiate and there's no any wiggle room on the contract. It to me though just seems like was due diligence done on this guy? Did we really look at his past history? Did we really look at his his medical conditioning? Did we look at his strength and conditioning? Did we look at the work that he'd done? Did we really genuinely think after that injury sustained against Killy last year that he would come back a newer, fitter, stronger player? What gave the medical team confidence that was the case? So for me, it is a concern. It is a big worry that we are going to be spending 4.5 million on a player that hardly ever plays. Is this going to be another Ryan Jack player, a very, very talented footballer who misses an awful lot of time? That's got to be the big worry for me. I would prefer it to be an option to buy. Then we could have obviously backed out of it. I think perhaps had it been an option to buy, Rangers may well have backed out of it, depending on obviously which goes obviously against what Clermont is saying. But you just look at it and I think as a club, as a football club, you look at a player and if he's missing that much time, and that's like 5 injuries in a year. That's a lot. That is a lot of time on the sidelines, and it's not great. It's not good for the club, and it's not good for the player. Guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Right, some news that came yesterday, which was that Dominic Tedesco, the manager of Belgium, has been sacked as manager. So there actually now is a vacancy for the Belgian national team job, which of course has led to certain media publications in this country and on the continent linking the name of Philippe Clement to the Belgian job, given the fact that he has previously been linked to it. Now, Clement has stated on a number of occasions that he's here for the long haul, that he believes in the project, that he's here for the rebuild, that he wants to do all that hard work, yada, yada, yada. He's got that new long-term contract, but look, when your national team come calling, and look, how I feel about international football. I don't like it. I don't respect it. But for footballers and for managers, it does seem to hold an attraction. Now, whether Clement doesn't want it because obviously he would lead to him kind of missing the day-to-day involvement with players, which I know is a big one that international managers miss. Loving football, about the coaching side of it, which he wouldn't obviously get as much of being the national coach. However, being the national coach, you do get to pick from the best in the world. You do get to play the best players you've got. I mean, in Belgium have some very talented footballers like Lukaku, De Bruyne, what's he called? Tielemans, just to name but 3. I'm struggling for names after that, but there we go. You know the guys. This is a decent nation now. They've got some decent players. So, it could be that there's an actual attraction there. Could this be a way of Rangers, sort of avoiding paying the big compensation fee and actually getting a compensation fee? Now, realistically, do I think it'll happen? Probably not, because we're not that lucky. But look, I think it's something, that has certainly come up, and it'd be something worth keeping an eye on over the coming days and weeks and months as Belgium's national FA look to find a successor to Dominic Tedesco. And like I said, I'd be only happy for Philippe Clement to open discussions with the Belgian FA with a view to a move back to his home country. Mate, Philippe, you've got my entire blessing and the blessing of everyone at Glasgow Rangers Nation if you want to do it. I'm sure that'll help. Anyway, look, let's move it along a little bit. So transfer news. Look, it was now, I think what I said on the video yesterday about Dowell and Matondo is looking kind of more and more true by the minute now. Clement was very clever in his press conference, refused to comment on it, refused to discuss it. As he doesn't comment on individual players, which is fair enough, especially as, we all know that the transfer business, the selling and the buying is left to Niels Kopp and not to the manager. We've certainly moved away from the model that Walter and Graham and Dick Advocat had. So, look, this is the way it is. But I think it's interesting, 4 lads have tweeted it out now, Heart and Hand have put it out there. So, 2 official club partners are both saying that, that Dowell and Matondo have been told they can to find new clubs, that they, will be allowed to leave the club, that there's a desire there to get them out of the club. So that's interesting. Obviously, nothing about Dessers in there. I mean, the manager was questioned about Cyril Dessers. He said he had a discussion with Dessers as regards why he wasn't playing more minutes. He spoke, in glowing terms about Dessers, about how he works well with as part of the collective. He sees the need for the team. He's worked well with Hamza. He's helped Hamza. Quite what he's helped Hamza do, I don't know. Perhaps missed chances, maybe, I don't know. But look, I think the Dessers deal, hopefully that's something that does get done. Hopefully Cagliari do come a calling and we do obviously see sense and get rid of him as soon as possible. But, Dowell and Matondo, again, 2 players I would welcome their exits. They don't contribute a great deal. They're not good footballers. And I think, I'll be honest with you. I saw a really interesting, thing on X earlier about, players to leave, and the people talk about players that that we need to clear Deadwood out. We need to get rid of Deadwood. And I actually returned the comment and I said, do you not think it would be easier to list players we'd rather keep than players we'd rather sell? Because I'd like to bet that if you went through the Rangers squad, there's probably, I don't know, probably 2/3 to 3/4 of them you'd probably want to sell, and probably wouldn't be worried about losing at the end of the day. I mean, you look at it in terms of those players. You look at the players who we've got in this current squad, and I'll be honest with you, there's not a great deal of players that I would quite happily keep, and not have any worries about. I mean, obviously, I thought, Liam Kelly and Jack Butland. Although, Jack Butland, if a decent bid comes in, I'd think about it. I really would. I do think we'd need another goalkeeper, though. I don't think Kelly's starter quality. You look at the defenders. Balogun, I would keep. You know me. I love Big Leon. I think he's amazing. Dujon Sterling, look, he's a good player, but he's too bloody injury prone. He's always out. He misses too many games. And look, I'm not slagging the lad off because he's a good footballer. He's a very good footballer, but his injury history is absolutely shocking. Tav has got to go. Suter, I would keep, definitely. Proper, no way. Yilmaz, again, good player, very good player. I like him a lot, but injury history is awful. Leon King, Divine, all got to go, really. Not because of any real reason, just because they don't get any first team football. So what's the point in them being here? Kiefte is a keeper, and Encialo is a keeper. Dowell, no. Raskin, definitely. Raskin is someone I would hold on to for 100%. Barron, yes. Dio, yes. Lowry, no. Bye-bye, Lowry. Rice, yes. Curtis, yes. Forwards-wise, Tom Lawrence, no. Quite happy to see him go. Yanis Hadji, I'd keep. Cheney, I'd keep. Bayrami, not massively impressed with Bayrami. I'd let him go. Dessers, please God, someone take him. Danilo, again, injury history. Good player, but injury history is awful. Matondo, definitely. Lovelace, yes. Cortez, no way. Guy's just an absolute liability. Hamza, 100%. And McCausland, take it or leave it. I mean, like I said, it's sometimes easier to say you'd keep, isn't it, really? Quite worrying, really. Quite worrying. Let me know your thoughts anyway. The transfer business in terms of incomings as well, Clement refused to be drawn on that about anybody being imminent. And tells you there's not a lot going about. It's a really weird month. It's January the 17th. We're almost halfway through, but we are over halfway through the month now. And there's been so little in terms of links, in terms of players, rumoured players coming in. It's been quite worrying, really. As a podcaster, as someone who, usually comments on this sort of stuff, makes videos about it, so little to talk about in terms of transfers, so little. It's quite worrying, really. Guys, let me know your thoughts, especially as we do need to strengthen. Thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, on the way out, please like, please subscribe, comment and share. Do all that fabulous stuff for me. And remember always, we are the people.